I think the context setting for this has already been done in my previous session, I guess. So I'll not get into too much of a context setting for this panel. But to say, to get started off with, people talk of these cliches, the data is a new oil, data is a new currency, data is a new electricity. But if you were to ask me a couple of months back, I would have said tomatoes is a new oil. In India, onions is a new oil always because prices, shoot up, right? But having said that, I think most of the organizations have realized the potential of data. And the volume of data, as I said in my talk also, is all exponentially increasing. Organizations have realizing the power of AI data, especially in the light of Gen AI. And as I said, leaders now talk of GDP as a gross domestic product, and that's going to determine the success of the country. And it's a matter of time before data is being viewed as an asset. Is it being treated as an asset? Is it going to appear on the financial books? Not yet so far, right? You have even IPs which are getting into your statements, financial statements. But it is only a matter of time before data also is treated as an asset and it appears on your asset and liability statement in your financial books, and it's only a matter of time before both the US GAAP and probably the Indian GAAP also kind of recognizes that. So as organizations are now geared up for driving this data culture and the data-driven organization, you have this new animal called the generative AI, which is completely changing the complexion of this entire kind of a game. So you have AI playing a major role, and I say you have good AI and you have bad AI also, right? So you have all the bad actors using the AI, which is the bad AI. This is something like all the 40 plus people, I'm sure you're all 40 plus people with good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. And some years back, we were talking of good Taliban and bad Taliban. I don't know what is there in good Taliban. There's something called a good Taliban at all, right? But still, so you have good AI, bad AI, and so on. So the theme of this panel discussion is all about the potential of data. What are those emerging trends that we see, and then what are the opportunities and so on. Let me start with Rajesh itself, because shift right, we will start from there, right? Rajesh comes from ABB, right? Rajesh, let's get to the specifics to say, you're known for a lot of automation, process automation and so on. So what is it that you are doing, and how is data playing out as part of your industry 4.0? I'm sure you must be having a large kind of a landscape of an industry 4.0. How is data playing a role in your ABB?
Can you hear me? Possibly you know that ABB has been around for many years, more than 100 years. In fact, one of the organizations have been in all the 4 industry revolutions, and also now we are entering into the industry 5.0. Right? We are at the cusp of want to maximize industry 4.0 and 5.0. As we have said, data is fundamental here. So if you combine the data with the technology, in this case for industries, IoT as a technology, and combine that with the domain expertise and AI, that's what brings the value of data as a digitization. The way that ABB looks at this, we serve customers on being a leader in the automation. We also combine the electrification and digitalizations to really bring the value of the industry 4.0 and also going to 5.0. We take few use cases. Today, more than 40,000 gas analyzers, leakage reduction systems, all this which are ABB's products across the different industries, all those data are coming through the satellite data to our one cloud, which is called as the ABB Ability Intelligence Cloud. This data is used for not only looking at the health of these analyzers, but also regulatory reporting, getting the insights of sustainability, to be able to decompose what the gas composition for beacon level CO2 and ammonia. Right? That's one use case. The other use case is looking at using the power of our data, industrial IoT and AI for managing more than 6,000 marine vessels and close to about 7,000 oil containers from one single cloud of ABB's SaaS operations for fleet operation as a center, right? Using again the power of data and AI. If we take just one more example, that today for customers, especially the asset intensive industries, whether it's oil and gas, utilities, transportation, pulp and paper, mining, asset performance management is a critical one, right? Predictive maintenance is top use case for any industrial IoT and AI. Using that remotely from here on a main which is 1,000 kilometers from here, let's say in South America or it's in possibly in, let's say, Valley as an example, you are able to manage the assets reliability, availability and performance for getting more than 30% savings in maintenance, 10% improvement in the reliability, 15% improvement in terms of what the asset overall performance and so on.
Yeah.
The generative AI, as you mentioned, is bringing a new dimension for us. In fact, we are the first one to bring the generative AI along with Microsoft into the industrial applications, which changes completely the value of how the user experience, context of the data,
Yeah.
as well as the collaboration of the teams together, right?
Yeah.
So, as a company like ABB, for us, not only for our own engineering assets that we deploy to customers, but also as a software player, digital player, to bring the value of digitalization or automation, has been immense opportunities now. Yeah.
Okay. Saurabh, coming to you, you come from a very, very competitive kind of an industry, the e-commerce segment. And one of the things that organizations are looking at is to use data as a differentiator. And I'm saying from my personal experience, my chairman used to always say, how can we use data as a differentiator? And by the way, I was the group chief digital officer of Ashok Leyland. So when we are establishing our EV business, and you find all the buses which are running in Bangalore are our buses, which is Switch Mobility. And for Switch Mobility, he was saying, how can we use data as a differentiator? And we do that today because it completely runs on an OpEx model. So you have the chairman of the organization and the board saying that we have to use data, and technology leaders are entrusted with the task of seeing how can you drive differentiation. So how are you using data as a differentiator?
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me here. So I think if you really look at the e-commerce context today, right, and especially the space in which Dealshare operates, which is the grocery business, I'm sure we all order grocery from Zaptos and Instamarts and all of that, right? So today the expectation of the customer is they're looking for great products, great service. The standard now is moving towards, of course, quick commerce is less than 10 minutes. But if you can't deliver it within a few hours, then you're not in the game today, right? So great product, great price, great service, and the fastest service the expectation is how fast you can deliver it, right? And companies have already achieved 10 minutes and all of that, right? Now, when you are operating in that kind of a market or in that kind of a business, I think the only critical thing that is driving all of this is the data, right? How fast, now, when you look at the e-commerce market, right? And we're talking about, let's say even if we don't talk about the 10 minutes delivery, right? Which only like 2 or 3 players are doing. And maybe there's certain use cases for that kind of a quick commerce model. But as I said, if you're not delivering in few hours, then you're not in the game, right? Now what that means is you have to have the very high level of awareness of your customer. What customer is looking for, in what demographics, in what area, at what price point, what products, what brands, and how can you reach to that customer the fastest, right? Now, this is where the data comes. Data becomes your lifeline. If you don't have a quality data, you don't have very sophisticated analytic systems behind it that is churning out the data, that is bringing out those insights, you're pretty much not in the game at all. You're out of the game there itself, right? So I would say in a business like this, which is so competitive, and the customers are so demanding, and all of us are customers, right? In day-to-day lives, we are all the customers and we know what we expect, right? So a lot of use cases, whether it's around the customer behavior, the shopping behaviors, or their expectation in terms of, as we call it, what products do they buy in the basket, right? While I'm doing all of that from a customer angle, right, I still have to build a viable business, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people are seeing that a lot of startups are putting their focus in terms of the profitability and the consolidation.
Yeah.
So while the customer is becoming more and more demanding and the bar is being raised on the customer expectations, at the same time, you have to build a very, very efficient, profitable, and scalable business, right?
For your business, if you look at even Amazon for that matter, they say 30 to 35% of the sales comes from the recommendation engines. You know, you select a product, it says people also viewed that, comes from a recommendation engine basically. Does that play a very important role?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what I meant. You need to know exactly what your customers are looking for,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You should be able to recommend them what products they're looking for.
Yeah.
And this is all the
Yeah.
analytics and the data behind it, right? So you have to marry the behavioral data of the customer with the demographics, with the transactional data. You need to look at the history of the customer, what they've been buying, what kind of a customer it is, what's the demographics of the customer. So when you bring all of that together, that's really where you start getting the real insights about the customer.
Yeah. I'll come to Arun now. Arun comes from Amadeus. And Arun, if I'm right, you are in the process of a huge kind of a cloud migration, right? So how are you using data to ensure a very smooth transition? One is the myth is always saying, you know, moving to the cloud is always a problem. And moving from one cloud to another is again another big kind of that's a myth. How are you managing that and how are you kind of deploying data to counter that? And most importantly, to manage your cloud cost, because managing a cloud cost is just not an art, it is a science by itself, right? Otherwise, overnight you will find that your costs have gone up, right? So how do you manage that?
But anyway, first of all, thanks for having me here. It's pleasure. Great question from a point of view of cloud migration and data as a convergence. In the context of things, I would probably put this as the Medici effect. I don't know if somebody has read that book. There's a lot of convergence happening in the industry now, and that's sort of driving bigger behaviors, right? For example, artificial Gen AI is a convergence of different technologies. Similarly, cloud was a convergence of different technologies. For us, I mean, getting back to the question why I sort of relate these two is cloud was an initiative to being more closer to the customer, right? And what that meant is moving to different parts of the cloud or localization in terms of data, localization in terms of experiences for a customer. In terms of the cloud cost management, data plays a big role in terms of how we evaluate what should move to the cloud, how quickly should it move to the cloud, what kind of disruption could it cause, and how to minimize that. And then last but not the least is in terms of financial aspects, right? So would a certain component be better if it's on A cloud provider versus a B cloud provider? And how do we evaluate it quickly and transition? So the basis of all this is even before we started the cloud migration, we started with a FinOps journey. The team was built, which was basically monitoring every single activity, every single transaction and relating that transaction to say, okay, this move or this product is generating X revenue and hence it's worth moving to the cloud or not moving to the cloud, right? So in simple words, building a good FinOps story, building or gamification of it in terms of the bit that you talked about bit before this is storytelling, right? So if we have data and if there's one team looking at that data, it doesn't make any sense, right? So it's about every single team having access to look at the data, making decisions or action-oriented views or dashboards to help decide and define what needs to go to the cloud and simplifying the process.
See, Sumanta, I'll come to you. You come from a very kind of a matured industry, very regulated industry also, right? And probably much before you were born when computerization was introduced in the banking industry. I'm talking of the mid-70s and early 80s was a time when there were no private banks then. They were all only government banks then. Government introduced computerization. There was a big hue and cry amongst all the bank employees. They went in arms, up in arms, protesting because they would lose their jobs. And 40 years down the line, fast forward, and today, that is the lifeline of the your banking industry. You can't do without technology today, and especially organizations like you, fintech companies and all that, it's a lifeline of the organization. So how are you using data analytics? I'm sure you must be using, that should be the blood in your organization. I was talking of the blood, right, equivalent to, the data. So how are you using data? How oxygenated is your data? In terms of the data quality, I was saying, right?
Data quality. Thank you. Thanks, Vin. See, for banking, as per me, I consider the first, like technology is like heart, and data analytics is like brain, and that needs to work properly. Now, coming to the data point of view, you are right. So in banks, is like a long industry where data usage is happening for quite a long time. But the things what changed in last like 1 or 2 decades is the velocity of the data and the needs and the products which is coming in the market for the banks. So in that particular context, data is asset for the banks, which they started like identifying, storing and governing for quite a long time. And the quality of data is extremely important because that's what impacts the customers or the regulators directly from bank standpoint. You may have heard many stories about, like rather than the investment of the banks, what they have done, they have given more fines in the last 1 or 2 decades at an overall level. So data is extremely critical, and the governance and the quality is the top priorities of the banks.
Yeah. So Shrikanta, let's now slightly shift gears and then talk about, I also mentioned, I think, how important it is for you to be building that data-driven culture. And the same thing I'll bounce it to Naveen also to answer.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts and views in terms of a set of things, some action points that an organization can do to embark on this data-driven culture? If you have to move to a data-driven organization, what is it that you're seeing amongst your customers, that is Mindtree's customers, and within your organization? If you can throw some light on that, it will be useful. I'll go to Naveen to say, how are service providers like you supporting organizations in their data-driven and data modernization also journey? That will be the next one to Naveen, which is kind of related. Yeah.
This is a nice question. Thank you for that. See, right now to sustain in the industry, there is no option other than utilizing or leveraging the data. If you don't use it, then probably you will be left behind, and your competitor or your peers, they will definitely supersede with respect to industry. So using data is, leveraging data is no more a choice, rather that is a mandate. And for that, the current environment is also supporting, like the volume of data, the velocity of data, and the variety of data. Lots of data is available. If you cannot utilize those data, then probably we'll be living behind. So here, let me give a brief statistical informations. Like every day, we are having 500 million tweets. 294 billion emails getting generated every day. And 4 million GB data is getting collected by Facebook every day. 4 million gigabytes. And by 2025, 463 billion gigabytes of data will be collected in that year. So this is the volume of data available with the organization for their disposal. So if you don't utilize that, then probably you will be leaving behind. So here, if I say the understanding towards the data, the adaptability towards data has been phenomenally changes over the years. Earlier, like I have an example. I was working with one of the leading title insurance company of India, US. So what their work is that the underwriter, whoever approves a particular proposal or something, he will make a risk category, a risk value from 0 to 1. 1 is high risk, 0 is low risk. And based on that, whether they will take that proposal or they will reject that proposal, they have to decide. So, and believe me, till few years back, it was a perception of the particular person. If I believe I can make it 0.7. If I don't like it, I can make it 0.2. It was no scientific, nothing was there. And eventually that organization suffered in a very big way and their profitability even come to single digit. Of late they realized that. What they made a regression model, very basic regression model. They have a huge data. And they scientifically come up with a figure. And believe me, their last financial year, their profitability, profit after tax has gone to 53.7% from single digit. So that is why what I want to emphasize is that now lots of opportunities there. Technology has been moved up in a big way. It has been democratized in a big way, like to nowadays to earlier that data analysis or predictive analysis is kind of a work of a data science. But now it has been so democratized, so many auto ML, auto S2O, data IQ. There are so many organizations. In so far, those who are interested in coding and all, for them PyCaret in Python language, there are so many opportunity, open sources available so that every citizen can be a data analyst.
Okay.
So it's my advice that
So
why
you're saying,
can't
I think it's a good takeaway to say that you're working on improving your data quality and so on, and parallelly organizations are also working on improving their data literacy and whatever needs to be done to bring the data culture, because that becomes a very important element for you to get that ultimate benefit from your data assets.
Otherwise you will perish, as simple as that.
So, Naveen?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me here. I think there was this quote back in the 1930s that, in God we trust, everyone else brings data.
Brings data, yeah.
This was from famous Edward Deming, who was one of the famous statisticians. But that
And
statement...
all the data analysts and all these guys, they have that as part of their signature in their
as
mail.
part of the signature. So, could not be more true now than ever before, right? I mean, I think all of us talked about it. So curated data is like an economic multiplier. You can essentially drive better customer experience. You can drive to better operational efficiencies. You can basically maximize your revenue. So as we engage with our clients as a services provider, we see a lot of challenges though. And how do you sort of unlock value from that large data estate that they have? There's this embarrassment of riches. There's a lot of data available, but how do you unlock value from that, right? So there are data silos, there are redundant data pipelines, there are multiple different tools to look at, various aspects of data operations. But at the end of it, when the value has to be unlocked, the business users are scrambling with having access to the right data. The good data is not available, good quality data is not available, and all of that, right? So a lot of our engagement with clients is around looking at what business goals, what business outcomes they're looking to drive, come in from an advisory or a consultative standpoint to look at what is a fit for purpose architecture that they can get to in terms of whether it is, there are different architectural patterns now in terms of data lakes, data warehouses, lake houses, data mesh, different architectural patterns that, you could look at. How do we bring in the accelerators? How do we bring in the right skills? Because data is a fairly proliferated space, right? You have so many different vendors, you have the hyperscalers. How do you bring in the right skill mix to to bring to bear to this whole data transformation journey? Yeah. The other thing I would add is, can there be a single control plane to manage all of your data operations, to ensure good data is made available to your downstream applications, whether that is reporting or AI or any of the downstream applications? How do you make good data available? Because I think that's a big part of the battle won. Because once you have good data available, your data scientists, your application users do not have to do all this, data scrambling or data munging rather, to sort of get to good outcomes. So that's the other thing that I think we engage a lot on. Generative AI, of course, is now changing the game in a lot of ways in terms of how data sets can be used and what can be done with data within the enterprise. But yeah, I think those are some of the things that we're looking at.
Thank you. So, I mean, today no discussion you can conclude a discussion without a talk on generative AI. So I'll make a very radical statement, Rajesh. I'm saying, I mean, it can be open to everyone, right? I'm announcing the death of visualization, data visualization. In the light of technologies like generative AI, it's only a matter of time before organizations are able to build their own LLMs. And you have a similar kind of an enterprise chat GPT available in all organizations, right? So you can type out, get output, you can talk to it, NLPs, and so on. But today, we are still seeing, we are only scratching the surface in terms of understanding the full potential of what Gen AI can really do, right? So that's the reason I said in my talk, I was talking of AI Lalla, because it's like Ram Lalla is a small, infant Ram is Ram Lalla, right? So we are seeing the infant AI at this point in time. How do you see this growing in the next? It's very difficult to predict, but I imagine that it can have a very significant, deep, profound impact on organizations. Any thoughts on that in terms of?
Yeah, certainly.
Anyone can take any questions on this.
I'll
before
possibly
we
start,
conclude.
and I'm sure that others can also add it. I can talk, I mean, I come from different industries, but last 5 years on the manufacturing industries with the ABB side. 4 years back, we brought this industrial AI, which is fundamentally that you have the AI data driven, but you need to also combine the domain expertise together. And that's not going away, because that's really is what building your analytical AI using machine learning, deep learning, combining with the ensemble domain expertise. You can do predict, you can optimize it. This is like applied across different areas, whether for the assets, whether for sustainability, energy management, emissions, process performance. You can also bring that for your supply chain resilience and so on. The generative AI, which of course become prominent just about now a year now. June last year, myself as well as the Microsoft, Bob, who is the COO, we announced on what it means for industries. How do we bring the generative AI into the industrial applications? And I'm going to just talk in a minute of what is already working for us and where we are going, as Vian was talking about. With generative AI today, if I am actually a maintenance or operations head, I can just drive my car, I ask my co-pilot, which is in this case ABB's Genix co-pilot, what's happening and what actions are taken for my critical assets, which is going to impact on my operations, availability, financial, profitability of that particular day, as well as sustainability impact, all this four. It's just summarizing it, all this. You don't need to really go through a couple of applications to see it. In fact, visualization, you don't need even a UI for it. It's a completely different experience of getting the information that you needed in an aggregated, more analyzed way, curated way.
Yeah.
Another example that we really see a big difference for the manufacturing industries is that the knowledge of the people which are there in some of these critical industries, mining, cement, and pulp and paper, oil and gas industries, those knowledges are fading because of the aged workers.
Yeah.
Today, using generative AI, able to collect that information into what we call as industry knowledge vault,
Yeah.
which is a way that you gather the information, contextualize it to use it across the
Kind
industries.
of a knowledge management system.
So it's like, for me, we used to think about digital twins as something like fancy. Today, using generative AI, we could generate digital twins along with AI in just a couple of minutes.
Wow.
So that's what we do it for, not only for our own critical assets, but also the customer composite systems as well.
Yeah. See, Arun is doing some interesting work using Gen AI to mitigate the pains of the developer community.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the biggest or the earliest things Microsoft brought onto the table was Copilot. And one of the bits that we see is the developer journey or the experience. So the core aspect that we look at, can AI replace a developer? No, but can AI replace a good developer and make him a better developer? Certainly yes, right? So I think one of the bits that we are certainly leveraging is driving efficiency by helping developers in writing better code, better quality code. We are seeing developer experience being better because of it. And even for, one is from a developer side, the other thing is also on the customer side where they are easily able to inspire. I mean, this is a world where people are getting inspired on travel by looking at various social media stuff. Generative AI is helping build better websites, customized websites, even without interference of a developer, right? So that's largely how it's progressing.
We have run out of time. Naveen, your final thoughts in terms of how Kindle is helping organizations in this whole generative AI journey?
Yeah, sure, Venkatesh. So essentially, what we are seeing is a lot of the experimentation phase is now almost getting over, right? I think a lot of enterprises have gone in, looked at what Gen AI can do for them, what outcomes it can drive for them, the ROI around it, and I think there's enough number of options in terms of, whether it's large language models or now you call them, you have this whole small language models that are now gaining prevalence and all of that. But I think very soon what's beginning to happen is as some of these models move into production, enterprises are realizing that there is a cost angle involved. There is a certain level of governance that's needed in terms of ensuring not only the responsible guardrails are in place in terms of what data goes, what content goes into the LLMs, what content gets generated out of the LLMs, but also in terms of which models to be used and all of that, right? So one of the things we are doing is introducing a LLM ops kind of a framework, which basically helps enterprises manage their entire life cycle, all the way from doing rapid prototyping to, selecting the models that they want to use, do a quick drag and drop, compose an application, I think as was being said right now, right, in terms of how quickly can you deploy these Gen AI applications, and then ensuring that you have the right guardrails, you have the right governance, you have the right cost, views, observability of what's happening across your Gen AI life cycle. So that's one of the ways that we are engaging with our clients around this space.
So the red light is already blinking, meaning to say we are completely out of time. But one last question and a very serious question. Can generative AI generate a pot of water, please, today here? I mean, on the lighter note, I will say, how can generative AI in the long term help in mitigating the pains and the challenges that the city is going through and will face in the future several more occasions like this? How does how can technology play a role in mitigating these challenges? Thank you very much, and can we have a round of applause for all these wonderful insights which the panelists have shared. Thank you very much.